Hey everyone, in this video I will show you how to make this modified shadow wheel effect. So it kind of looks like this. So here you can see that when I move, I leave trails behind and you can see the heart of the character highlighted. And after a while it kind of disappears. And if I press E again, I can get the same look again. And here you can see that it kind of shows through objects also. And there is also a scan effect like this. So this is going to be a multi-part tutorial. So in this tutorial I will be covering the particle effect that you can see, which is the shadow wheel effect, and in the next part of the tutorial I will be covering the scan effect, this one. So you can change a lot of parameters with this. So here you can see that only the hand and the feet bones are emitting the particles. You can also change this. You can make all the bones in the mannequin's skeleton to emit the particles. So if I make that happen, so now you can see that the ribbon is coming out of all the bones randomly. We can also increase the amount of ribbons that spawns. So now you can see there are more ribbons being emitted. We can also use this for a dash ability if you want. And obviously you can also control all the colors if you want to. And here you can see the small particles are kind of bounce when it collides with the ground. So this is what we are going to be creating today. If you want to download the entire project files, so this will include the scan effect and also the shadow wheel effect, but it won't have the environment because I got it from the marketplace. So you won't get that, but everything else you will get. So you will get the scan effect and the shadow wheel effect and also the heart glowing, all that from my Patreon if you pledge $5. And for $5 you can also get almost all my previous project files. So check that out also. And thank you very much if you are already my patron. So first we are going to create the explosion that happens. So after the explosion the player's mesh changes. So if I press E again, you can see that there's an explosion and the player mesh changes. And again like this. So this is what we are going to be creating first. So right click, then go to FX, then Niagara system, then click next, then go to omnidirectional, then plus, then finish. Now I will call this ns underscore body, then open it up. Now go to initialize particle, then color, and I will change this to a red color. So 22 for red. So that's all we need to do here. Now we will create this smoke particle. So for that we can go to the content browser, then right click, then materials, then m underscore smoke. So this will be our smoke particle, then open it up, then change this to a translucent material and then change the shading model to unlit. Now for the opacity and MC color we need a sub UV. So right click and type in particle sub UV. Then here for the texture we can type in smoke here and select the T smoke sub UV. So this is an 8x8 smoke sub UV texture. So we need this. Now right click and get a particle color. Then we can multiply the alpha of this particle sub UV with the alpha of this particle color. So we can control the alpha of this material from the Niagara system. So now we will get another multiply and connect this here, and we will connect this to the opacity mask. Now we will get a depth fade node. So what this node does is that if our smoke gets close to some surface, it will output a value of 0. So the closer this smoke texture gets near a surface, it will fade out. so there won't be any harsh transition or harsh cutoff. This will only work with translucent materials, by the way. So connect this to the multiply here. Now for the color, we will get lerp. Now here we can drag on the red channel and type in round. So what this does is that every value that is above 0.5 will be rounded to 1, and every value that is less than 0.5 will be 0. So here in the texture you can see that some parts are more white and some parts are darker. So we can kind of isolate those parts and get kind of a stylized result with this texture if we use round. So we can connect this to the alpha. Now here to control the round, we can get a subtract node. Then we need to saturate this. So this value doesn't go above 1 or below 0 since we are connecting it to the alpha. Otherwise we will get weird bugs. Now connect this to the MC color. Now we can press and hold V and click to get this vector parameter, and we can call this color. And now connect this to B here. So here for subtract, press and hold S and click. So we get this scalar parameter. Now we can call this width. Then connect this to the B here. Then click apply. Now here for the color, we can give this red value. So you can see the edges are red. We can actually increase the value to like 200. So it is more red. Now if we just increase the width value to like 0.5, it will fade and 1 will make it completely disappear. So you can play around this value to get the result you want. I'm going to change this value to like 0.8. Now we can go back to the material and we can kind of copy this and paste this again. We will call this explosion smoke. Now select this. I'm going to sprite render, and here you can change this material to this material instance. So just change that to this material instance, and here you can see that the texture is 8 by 8. So since we are using sub UV, we need to go to the sub image index and change this to 8 and change this to 8 again, and then go to particle update and click and type in sub UV, then sub UV animation, then change this value to like 63. So that's 8 into 8, which is 64. Since we start from 0, it will be 63. Now we need to change the size of the particles. So in order to do that, we need to disable this, or you can control that using this width, height, depth value, or you can just disable that and go to initial particles, and then here is the size of the particle. Just tick that, and here we can just control it uniformly with a float value. So type in float, then we can change this value to like 100. So we get an explosion like this. So now if I go here and change this value to like 99, it will have a different look. So you can experiment with this value to get the kind of look you want. Now I will go to particle update, then type in add velocity, and I will give a 10 value to y. I mean negative 10 value to y, so it will go behind the character, and give a 10 value to c also. So it will go up first, then I can just copy that and go here and paste it. This add velocity needs to be above scale force and velocity in order for this to work. So you can click fix issue or just drag it above it and it works. So it kind of goes up a bit first then goes down. So we need to make this scale a bit. So right now we can add this to our character and see how this works. So I will go here and go to the mesh and type in add component. Then I will type in Niagara and select Niagara particle system. Then I can select our particle system and add that. And if I just press play, you can see that there is this explosion happening. So if you want to replay that, right click and type in E keyboard. So we get an E keyboard event. Then we can bring in our Niagara particle system. This is my old one. So I will just bring that in. Then I will drag this and type in activate. And here you can also check reset. And if I press play and if I press E key, you can see that it is playing like this. We forgot something. We need to add the skeletal mesh locations. So we have to go to the spawn and type in skeletal mesh and change this to mannequin and just copy that and paste that here also. So now if I press play and press E again, you can see that it is kind of going backwards like this. So now here you can see that it is kind of going back like this in an explosion. You can also control the size of these particles. So if you want a bigger particle, you can change the sprite size to like 200 or something like that. And then you can also control the speed. And you can also control the amount of particles by going here and changing this value. So I will just decrease this value to like 20. So let's see what that looks like. It doesn't look that good. So I will change this back to like 100. So now we will emit this smoke when the character moves. So for that, we will just copy and paste it. And we can rename this to move smoke. So it happens when the character moves. So for that, we can disable the velocity. We don't really need the add velocity. And we don't really need the add velocity from point. And here we can delete the spawn instantaneous. Then click on update, then type in per unit, spawn per unit, then change this value to like 5 or something like that. So the higher this value is, the fewer the amount of particles we spawn. So here we need to disable the gravity force also. Now go to emitter state, then change the loop behavior to infinite. Now if I press play and if I move, you can see that I am emitting particles like this. But we want the particles to be small when it is first emitted. So for that we can go to the move smoke emitter and we can go to particle update. Then we can type in scale, then scales sprite size. So there is already one here. We can just disable that. Then we can go here. So here we have a 2 vector. We can change this to a float. So we can change the scale of the sprite by a single value uniformly. Now we can change the scale. So here, when the smoke is first emitted, it should be smaller. Then it should gradually grow in size. So in order to grow this gradually, we need to grow the sprite using the normalized age of the particle. So in order to do that, go to the body. Then here we can click this and type in curve. Then we can click float from curve. Then here you can see that the curve index is normalized age. So we can set this value to like 0. So its time is equal to 0. When the particle spawn, it will be 0. And here, this value we can change this to 1. So now if I play, you can see that it is really small and then it is growing. So we don't really want this either. So in order to fix this, we can go here and select the 0th value and change that to 0.4. So now if I press play, you can see it is working like this. So now in order to control which bone it comes out of, you can go to the skeletal mesh, then go to filtered bone, then click this plus icon. Then here we can type in hand, then select hand R, then again type in hand L, then we can type in foot L and foot R. Now go to bone sampling and here change this to random filtered bone. Now if we press play, you can see that only the hand and the feet is emitting the particle, and this is what we want. So if you think the particle trails are a bit long, you can adjust that by going to the initialize particle, then changing the lifetime to 0.4 and 1. So now you can see we have a much shorter trail. Now we will create the ribbons. So for that, go to the NS body, then copy this and paste this again, and we can call this ribbon. So rename this to ribbon. Then we will just disable the sprite renderer and add a new renderer by clicking this plus icon, and here you can get the ribbon renderer. Then so for the material here you can type in ribbon. So if you don't see any ribbon material, you can select view options. So here in the view option, click show plugin content and select the ribbon material. So if you don't have it, it is a really simple material, a particle color connected to a multiply like this, and it is additive and unlit. So it can be translucent also if you want, but additive is a bit more cheaper than translucent and it kind of gives a similar effect. So now here if I start playing, we already have some weird looking ribbons here. So this is not what we want. So in order to fix that, we can go to the body, then we can just disable the scale, we can disable the UV. Now we can go to the particle spawn, then click this plus icon and type in ribbon. We get this initialize ribbon, click that and change this color to this red color and change the lifetime to like 0.5, then change the ribbon width to like 1, and now if I press play, you can see that the ribbon is spawning in the arms and the legs, and if you want it to spawn everywhere, you can go to the skeletal mesh location. Then here in the bone sampling mode, change this to random all bones. And now if I press play, you can see that it is coming out of all the bones. You can also use sockets for this if you want. Here you have this filtered sockets, so you can create your own sockets, or you can even use the bones if you want. So I will just change this back to like filtered bones. Then I will go back to the spawn per unit and I will change this value to like 10. So 10 is enough if you are just spawning from 4 points like this. So now this is what we get. Now we will create the bouncing particles. So for that, open this up. Then duplicate this smoke again by copying and pasting it. And now we will call this the dot. So here we can call this move dot. And here for the sprite renderer, you can just select this omnidirectional and sprite, then this default sprite, this one. We can just use that in our move dot here also. So go to the sprite render, then add that, then change this sub image to 1 and 1 because this is just a symbol material like this. So now this is default in the engine, by the way. Now go to the sub UV animation and delete that. Then go to initialize particles and change the size to like 1. And now if I press play, you won't be able to see anything because we have to give a brighter color to it. So there you can see that. So we need to add gravity to that. Then we can add bounce. So we can add the collision. So this will give us bounce. I think the particle is way too small to be seen. So we can go to the per unit and change this value to like 10. Then we can go to the skeletal mesh location and change this to random all bones. Then we can go to the scale color and disable that. Now if I press play, you can see it bouncing like that. So if you want to make it more visible, you might be able to change the size to like 8 or something like that. Then you will be able to see it more. I think 8 is too much, so I will change this to like 4. Even 4 is too much. I will change this to like 2. So one reason it is invisible is that we are kind of scaling it. So we can just, yeah, it is going from 0.4. So we can kind of disable that. Now we can re-enable the scale color. So it has this fade effect at the end of its life. So here the alpha value is 1 and here that value is 0. So now if I press play, you can see the particles dropping like that and bouncing. So now to change the character to a shadowy version of that character. So that's really easy to do. So to change the character to the shadowy version, we need to create a new material. So right click, then go to material. Then I will call this m_body. Then open it up. Then change this to unlit. Then change this to masked. Then, so here for the MC color, since we are going for a black color, we can leave this empty. Now for the opacity mask, we can type in dither. And we can just connect that into the opacity mask. So it kind of gives us a look like this. So if you want to increase the size of this grains, if you open up this, you can see that the size is controlled by this 2 vector. So you can just easily copy and paste this into your material and change the size here if you want. And you can change the texture here to something else if you want. But for this tutorial, we are just going to stick to this. So this is a really simple material. If you want to improve this, you can actually add a MSC color, and you can also add a Fresnel. So if I get a Fresnel and I can get a LUR, I can connect this to the alpha. I can connect this here, and now I will get an vector parameter, and I will call this color, and I can change this to a red color like this, and connect that to B. So I get something like this. So you can also increase the power here. So if I get a constant, so press 1 and click and change this like 4. It will be more harsh. I can change this to like 10. It will be harsher. So now click apply. So now to change the material on our character to this, we have to go to the third person character. Open it up. Then here, now when I select the mesh, you can see that it has 2 materials, element 0 and element 1. So in order to activate and deactivate it, we need to store this material somewhere first. So for that, right click and type in begin play. Then here we can bring in the mesh, then type in get material and select get materials. Then this will be an array. Just promote this to a variable. So we will type in original material for it and connect this to here. So it will store both our original materials. And now we can just drag in the mesh again and type in set materials. Then connect this here, and for this material we will select our new body material. We can also create an instance out of it, so we can control the variables if you want. Then click to add that here, then duplicate that, then connect this here and change this index to 1. So 0 and 1. We got both elements. So now if I press play, and now if I press the E key, you can see that it is kind of grayish. So I will go back and go back to the body, and here I will type in skeletal and tick used with skeletal mesh, and Now I will click apply. So now if I press play and press the E key, you can see that our character is kind of shadowy like this and it's reddish. So you can go to the instance and change this to a darker value if you want. So now if I press play and press E key, it kind of appears. So now to control the effect with E key alone, we can go back to the third person character. Then here select Niagara 1. So this is the particle system we created. Then here type in auto activate. So this will prevent it from activating when the character spawns. So now if I press play, there won't be an effect. So if I press E key, the effect will be there. So now when I press E again, I need to revert back to our original material. So for that, we can go here and type in flip flop. So what this flip flop does is that when we press E one time, we get the output from A, and when we press E again, we get the output from E. So here the important thing is that I select reset here. So if I don't select reset and press play, if I press E once, this happens, and if I press E again, nothing will happen. But if I tick reset and press E, this happens, and if I press E again, it happens again. So this instantaneous things only happens once. So if you want to see them again, we need to tick reset also. So here we will just, in the second press of the E key, we will just deactivate this Niagara particle system. Then we will just duplicate this, and now we will bring our original material back. So in order to do that, just get the original material array. Then from here, drag and type in get copy. Then connect this to material. Then duplicate that and connect this here and change this value to like 1 for element index 1 and connect this here. And now if I press play and if I press E key, you can see our character turned to this. And if I press E again, so here you can see that it happens all of a sudden without the explosion. So if you want this, you can have it, or if you want the explosion again, and here we will activate this first, so we will get that explosion again. Then with a short delay, we will deactivate it like 0.2 or something like that. So we need to activate the Niagara system again, so it resets and show us the explosion effect again. So if I press E, I get this. If I press E again, I will get the explosion and the character changes like this. And now if I press E again, so now we have this effect. So I think in the original effect, the smoke had bit more speed, so it was coming to the camera faster. So you can add that speed in this if you want, add velocity. So yeah, I think that's it for the tutorial guys. Thanks for watching, and if you want the project files, you can support me on my Patreon and download the entire project files from there. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for the second part of this video.